Hey, what's up, everybody? It is another episode of The Big Boys right here on the Pregame Show Network. I am Tolly Carr in Atlanta. We have people all over the country joining us now. You know this guy, Uncle Neely, hanging out in Boulder, Colorado after a home game this past weekend. And joining us, as always, Coach Carl Reed, college football analyst for 24/7 Sports. All right, guys. It was another game that you felt like maybe it got late and we're like, okay, things could happen, but they did not fall the way that a lot of fans wanted for Colorado, losing to Oregon State in a fourth quarter comeback that just ran out of time. Carl Reed, let's start here. We had some big news before that game. On Friday night, the world learned that, hey, we're going to have a new offensive play caller for Colorado. You talked about in last week's episode of the Big Boys, hey, schematically, there's some things that's got to change. And you specifically talked about, bringing in another tight end and doing some more, blocking schemes, moving the pocket around. Early on, we saw some of that with the new play caller and Pat Shurmur. Tell me, Coach, what was your takeaway after you saw a new voice there calling plays? What did you see? What did you like?
I think it gave you the game really that you wanted from a coaching perspective. You slowed down the tempo a little bit. You added some different personnel packages in. And so people will look at it on the one end and say, well, they didn't score 40 or 50 points and throw for 400 yards. But you lost 26-19. You had a great opportunity to win the game. The key moment of the game was right before halftime when the score was 7-3, and you could have ran the clock out and went in the locker room at a 7-3 game. But a pass was thrown, ball is kicked down the middle of the field to a dynamic punt returner, and you end up giving up the touchdown going into halftime. So when you go into halftime now in that scenario down 14-3 instead of 7-3, and you're going to get the ball back coming out of half, that completely changes the entire scenario of the football game and the way you have to play coming into the second half. So overall, I think that the change kind of helped shorten the game and kind of made it a one-possession game, which is, giving you an opportunity to win. But from an offensive standpoint, the quarterback still has to be protected, and Shedeur is still taking a beating every week.
Yeah, that's one of the things I saw as well, Coach Reed. You spot on once again, my brother. It's hard to come up with a play that does not require blocking. And in as much as we would want to add in some jumbo packages where you put an additional tight end out there and maybe even one of our bigger backs to help block, you can't go to war with what you ain't got. And if we ain't got it, you can't put it out there on the field. So one thing schematically, the offensive line is who they are and showing that who they are. Although I must say, some of that stuff was cleaned up. I think totally you may have just had 4 sacks this game. Shedeur was not hit as much, but there were moments when you needed better protection. You couldn't get it. But I do agree, Coach Carl Reed, that one of the things that happened was limiting the number of opportunities for the opponent because you did slow the process down. That's something we failed to do against Oregon that caused that to lead to a blowout because they had so many possessions based on us fastly going 3 and out with incomplete passes and that kind of thing. People are going to say and sit back and second guess that this change that Coach Prime made because we didn't win the game, that it didn't work, that it's a failure. I think one game is too soon to know that. We also have to appreciate that Pat Shurmur, as a offense analyst, has been involved in the offense and been involved with knowing this personnel. So it's not like it was an upheaval and a coup d'etat that somebody thinks it is. This was just a natural transition from having a guy who was an analyst. Okay, you called the plays this week, and the offense coordinator was going to do the signaling.
Carl, when you look at the game, you talked about it, that last 38 seconds of the second quarter. You go with 2 passes, both are dropped. One is a screen pass. Another one was just a little quick route there by Jimmy Horn. You run it on third, then you got to punt it away. We talked about it earlier in the week on the rewind. I was like, I didn't hate it because if those guys, catch the ball, it's like a handoff in many ways. What were your thoughts on the plays that were called there in the last 38 seconds?
I thought that if you're getting the ball back after half, you have to run the clock out and go into halftime 7-3. You had to go down and make the adjustments. When you put yourself in that position where you throw two quick passes and they're incomplete, but I'm from a school that thought when you throw a pass, three things can happen and two of them are bad. And so when you look at that scenario right there, you got a drop pass, you got an incompletion, the clock stops, and Oregon State has one of the most dynamic punt returners in the game. And so you already punting from a short field. He makes an incredible return. A couple plays later, you got a touchdown pass. It just puts you in a really, really bad position. I would like to see a possession football game at that point in it.
And I totally understand where Coach Carl Reed is coming from, but I didn't have any problem with the aggression, man. With the way our defense was playing and holding those guys and the way we weren't putting points on the board, I looked at it from a half-full standpoint that if we could go down there and aggressively get points and get the ball back after halftime, which was already solidified with the coin toss, then now we got a chance to put two scores on the board in short order. But as it always happens with this team, or seemingly happens, what can go wrong does go wrong. Incomplete passes with some of the more experienced hands on the team as it relates to the relationship between Shedeur and the receiver. You look at what Dylan Edwards was able to do at TCU with those hands, and what Jimmy Horn Jr. has done as recently as UCLA, but all season long with his hands. But you get those incompletions and it stops. But we're having a totally different conversation if that doesn't happen and we score and then score again after going into the third quarter. So in as much as from a football manual, coaching philosophy, I understand what Coach Carl Reed is saying. Sitting here with this team day in and week out, I was like, hey, man, let's go. Let's do something. We need to err on the side of aggression. And, it didn't work.
It did not. It leads to a touchdown just a couple of plays later, right after that punt. Carl, just watching it on TV, as soon as I saw it, I knew I wanted to ask you about it. The analyst on the broadcast talked about the cornerback being in cloud coverage on that play, and he went to cover what seemed to be some action going right there in the flat, and then he had to recover and get back with I think it was it the running back that took off down the field? The tight end kind of drew him in, but thinking back on that play, tell us what went wrong for Colorado that Oregon State was able to score so quickly on that possession.
Well, so, when you go cloud three, you go and sink flat to deep third. And so he challenged his flat was challenged first, and then you see the back leaking out, and he just didn't recover and drop to his third in time. And so by him not dropping to his third in time, the back leaks out, and that was a good play design by Oregon State because you're accounting for all of the receivers, and people will sleep on the running back coming out on the wheel route in that. So if you play an assignment football, you have to sink if somebody challenges your third, but in cloud, you're going to have the flats if your third doesn't get challenged. So from a receiver standpoint, the mentality of the corner is, well, the receiver is in my flat, but then you have to account for the back who challenged your third. And by the time he saw it, he was just late getting there.
Damn right. It is what it is, man. That's one of those plays where I don't know if that cloud coverage was necessarily a bad thing for the defense as much as it was kudos to the offense and them drawing that up to take advantage of it. And you saw the same thing when they would do that five wide, if you will, in the second half, and the quarterback would take off running because no one is in the middle spying and waiting on him. Can't take anything away from Oregon State, man. They called a hell of a game. They executed a hell of a game. And when we would have a defensive front out there and they would quickly do a check out of it into something that was more advantageous, that would challenge our athletes to have to cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time. And that's what caused those big plays to happen. But, that defense, Coach Carl Reed, particularly in that first half, even with that fluke play at the end, I don't know if that defense could have played any better than they played to put the offense, complementary football-wise, but to put the offense in a position to take advantage. Gave them 2 turnovers, held them, to 7 points in 2 quarters right there to the end. It was the offensive side of the ball that could not make anything happen. You're looking at 1 of 8 on third down in the first half.
From a defensive standpoint, the defense has really improved from week to week. Charles Kelly has really rallied the troops and has them playing much better football. And now the offense is starting to regress a little bit. And so if they can ever get both sides together, doing it the right way, then that's what they're going to need to have success in these last 3 games.
You know, I am just a fan, and I sit here and watch it, and I can't explain it the way you guys did. Carl, when you broke down cloud coverage, I didn't know if you were talking about a football play or something my plumber might say. I just heard, leak and flat and third. And you do such a great job with this information, Carl. And making Carl smile is my biggest challenge of the week. But when you look at, there we go. When you look at that defense, man, again, I'm just a fan. I'm looking at it, and I get to the point now where I expect turnovers because what I've seen the last 2 weeks, I'm like, man, I feel like they're going to pick it off. I feel Shiloh is going to force a fumble. But as you alluded to on offense, I'm like, ooh, I really expect Shiloh to be reversing field like, Marcus Allen in the 84 Super Bowl. I think it was 84. I think he might lead FBS football in reverse field, scrambles. But it's like you gain something and then you lose something. But it's got to be kudos for that defense, like you said.
The defense, man, is playing well. They're playing good enough to win. Even when you go back to the UCLA game, 7-6 at halftime, turnovers, very opportunistic the way they're playing. Charles Kelly is doing a great job mixing coverages, going from zone, going to man, switching the fronts, going from 4-2-5 to sometimes they're stacking out to 3 and to sometimes going in the odd or reduced fronts. He's doing a great job, and he seems to be doing it at the right time. And he's working with a limited amount of talent in some positions, and so he's throwing a lot of things at the offense. And so they're really, really improving on that side of the football.
Yes, sir. And one of the things you touched on, Coach Reed, was the regression of the offense. We had always said on the big boys that with the injuries that Charles Kelly had in his secondary, that by the time we got off the bye week and guys got a game under their legs, that you're going to be looking at one of the best defenses Colorado has had, because now everybody is not only healthy, but they also got game experience on them. And I think that's exactly what you're seeing. The past couple of games, halftime, and your opponent, is just 1 score or less in the game in 2 halves. But we don't have complementary football going. Dig this, fellas. Shiloh Sanders costs us a turnover. We recover it on the 19. We're in the red zone. We only got 4 yards. 4 yards and 4 plays and kick a field goal. That can't happen in Power 5 football. When you have a defense give you a takeaway and they gift wrapped it less than 20 yards for you to score, you have got to get a touchdown out of that.
Coach Kelly talked about this with Neely earlier, Carl. He talked about eye discipline. And look, guys are as fast and as strong as they're going to be this year. You're not going to see incremental gains at this point in the season. Carl, can you watch a game? Can you be sitting at home and watch a game and tell a guy's eye discipline? And what that means is he's looking where he needs to go, or, he's doing his job and he's not caught out of position. Is that something you can see as an analyst looking at the game?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw Notre Dame give up a big touchdown to Clemson yesterday on a similar situation. And when you're talking about eye discipline and reading your keys, if you're a linebacker, for example, and your key is to read through the guard to the near shoulder of the running back, but sometimes that jet motion that runs across the field destroys your run fit. So you get to looking at the guy going the jet, you step a step to the left, and then they run the ball back underneath in the gap that you were supposed to be in. You're in cloud coverage, you got flat to deep, you're looking at the receiver, but your key has to be who's challenging your area in a zone type coverage like that. So anytime you're in a situation where your defensive guys are not reading keys, where they don't have eye discipline, you get beat. Offenses are very simple, but they do a lot of window dressing, a lot of motions, a lot of shifts to try to get somebody to move out of position, and then they run a simple inside zone, or they run a simple smash concept with, a corner route and a hitch underneath. They run levels, where DJU had a big touchdown throw when he ran a levels concept, where you just leveling the linebacker high-low. So they'll do a lot of window dressing offensively, and teams do that. We've scored a lot with Shador doing those kind of things as well. But the great defenses have eye discipline, and they don't fall for the false keys and the false reads that offenses create from pulling, shifting, slanting, and going into different formations.
You know, Tolly, you and Coach Reed had the opportunity, I'm assuming, to watch and listen to the broadcast. Being here at the game, I don't know what they're saying on ESPN TV, but as it relates to eye discipline, I would have to imagine you guys heard the name Levante Bentley a couple of times that night from the broadcasters. Because as I watched that game, and Bentley, who transferred here from Clemson, as I watched that game at linebacker position, he showed you what eye discipline gets you. He was able to get sacks. He was able to get tackles for losses, had a pass breakup that almost resulted in an interception, because he was patient. He was chopping his feet, watching the play develop, and not guessing at what's going to happen. Linebackers have to react to what is actually happening, and that takes eye discipline. That takes watching what you're supposed to watch and not going full damn speed until it happens, until you know what's taking place. A lot of players get anxious because I haven't had a tackle yet. I want to get involved in the game, and next thing you know, you're looking at the wrong gap, looking at the wrong assignment, and you go the wrong way, and there's a big play up the field. I think Bentley, as it relates to eye discipline that you asked about, Tolly, had an outstanding game yesterday for the Buffaloes. We just didn't get the W, but he was a major part of that defense really coming on.
Neely, I agree with you there. I thought he did a tremendous job reading his keys, running the grass when the gaps opened up, slow playing the run, not overplaying the zone run game, and staying in his run fit gap that allowed him to make some great tackles. What they're called routine football plays. You don't have to make the spectacular play. You have to do your job and make the plays you're supposed to make. And you can get paid playing football a long time if you can do that consistently.
Amen.
Has that been the difference the last couple of weeks, or, with this improved defense, has it also been a mix of, some different, schematic things, or guys just doing their job better than previous weeks?
I think guys are settling into the system because Charles Kelly comes from Alabama. He comes from that Nick Saban coaching tree defensively. And if you've ever been around the Alabama program, they do a lot on defense. It's a lot of fronts. It's a lot of coverages. It's a lot of calls. It's tons of situational football, matching up the personnel groups. They used to play it where they would put 15 guys on the field, and then before the snap of the ball, the 4 guys who are not supposed to be in come off. That's how Alabama used to do it back in the day. So it's a really mental exercise to play in that system of defense. It's not just as simple as running 1 or 2 coverages, which is a lot of programs are doing. You have to really be mentally locked in. And in the first year of running that defense, the last part of the season is probably as long as it takes you to even feel comfortable with your assignments. And those guys are starting to settle in what they're doing. And it's a tremendous improvement from the first part of the season.
Tolly, you need to call up the Guinness Book of World Records, because what you're about to see on the Big Boys is the long distance fist bump record in history, because I'm reaching from Boulder to St. Louis and I'm fist bumping my brother Carl Reed because he is spot on. One thing I can add to that, Carl Reed, is that what has also happened here in this Charles Kelly defense, when you look over these past few games before the bye week and after it, what are the 5 to 7 things that we do well? That is what Coach Prime sat down with Coach Kelly and said, look, man, I'm not saying take things out. I'm saying let's overdo the things we do great at, and let's do less of the things that we struggle with, so these guys can really get stronger and confident in this defense. And when you see guys in the film room, when you see guys staying late and studying and grasping what Charles Kelly brings to the table from Florida State and Alabama, something this program hopes to get back up to defensively, guys have bought in, guys are healthy, guys have experience, and they're flying around, but most importantly, they're doing their job. So you see a conference lead in takeaways. You see individuals like Cameron Silman Craig, HBCU transfers from Jackson State, leading the conference in interceptions, because these guys are dialed in and focused and are truly learning this Charles Kelly defense. And the best is yet to come. It is now up to the offense, complementary football. I'm going to say it and say it and say it, that when the defense puts you in an advantageous position, you've got to put points on the board.
It's pretty amazing. I've never and I listen to a lot of national talk about Colorado, or even here locally in Atlanta when they talk about it. I turn the radio up and listen to guys' takes. I've never heard that nuance discussed. Like, hey, there's a lot going on in this defense, and it might be the last month of the season before all this clicks. And not only that it clicks, but you feel comfortable doing it. We all know what it's like to learn a new program or new software. You're like, yeah, I think I'm supposed to do that, and I think this combination of keys will be a shortcut. And then one day it finally clicks, and you're just back at it at normal speed. And I'm not saying this just because I'm a member of the Big Boys, but I think part of that, guys, and tell me what you think, is that with the arrival of Coach Prime, this is going from a program that last year was like, okay, I know you're going to beat me up, but don't hit me in the face, okay? And this year the expectation is, like, why aren't you winning? Like, you should win. Like, you have everything you need to win.
Coach Prime is one of those guys that has a reputation for being successful. And so very few people in life know what it feels like for everybody to expect you to win every single time you do something or every single time you step into a situation. Everybody thinks that you're supposed to hit the ground running, play at the highest level. And then as a competitor, you want to do that. But building a football program is still going to be a process. You still cannot skip the steps that it takes to be successful. It's not like basketball where you can just add 2 or 3 guys and they can go out there and they can just start getting 20 and 30 and getting busy. Football is a completely different game. You have to build it from the inside out. And there's a lot of excitement about Coach Sanders and about the University of Colorado. It has been all year, obviously, with the ratings of the games. But they still have some things they have to address up front, getting some ends tied in before they go to the next level as a football program.
And the arrow is absolutely pointing up when you look at just the overall program and not the wins and losses of a particular season. When you look at a team with 5 losses, which Colorado sits at, the only team that just straight up destroyed us was Oregon. The other 4 losses, you were in positions to win those games. Hell, one of those games, you were up 29-0 at halftime. So this is a team that we could easily be sitting here talking about being 8-1 on the season versus 4-5. The margin of error is just that thin, and that is with a less than optimistic in performance offensive line. That is with a defensive line that is not as talented as the rest of the conference. You get 1 or 2 people in here on both sides of the ball, they make a difference in the outcomes of those games. And the 8-1 program this season is in the top 10. But one of the things I want to go back to on that defense, Tolly, and Coach Carl Reed, please correct me if I'm wrong. You know way more about defense than I ever will. It's hard to do something fast that you do not know how to do, that you're not comfortable doing, that you don't have confidence doing. So as this season has gone on and these players have truly learned Charles Kelly's defense, you're getting the results you're getting because of their ability, their confidence in knowing they're doing the right thing. Now, unlike Colorado State game or unlike a Nebraska game, now they can do what they were doing then, but they can do it faster because they're confident they're doing it right.
Neely, you spot on with that assessment. I was talking to an NFL guy the other day, and even as guys get drafted into the National Football League, the majority of guys that don't make it from college to NFL or from high school to college, it's not about the physical traits. Those guys have the physical traits, the size, the speed, the ability. It is because of the mental capacity of the game. It's because you can't just outrun. You just can't overpower. You have to be able to outthink. You have to be able to play within the system. You have to be able to learn the verbiage, the sight cues, all of the terminology. You have to know every level of the field, in phase, out of phase, across the board. And the guys who can think the game are the guys that end up making it and becoming very successful. And if you cannot think the game, if you cannot process information, if you cannot take coaching immediately and transition into the field, that's when you're going to have problems. And so when you see guys flaming out or a guy turns out to be a bust, it's usually that side of the game because coaches very seldom miss on the physical traits.
Hey, Tolly, let me tell you this, man. Put a little bow on this. Because I know you drive around Atlanta. Let me tell you what you ain't never done. You ain't never drove fast while being lost. When you don't know where the hell you're going, you drive real slow. It's the same thing in football.
And I turn the radio down.
Exactly. When you don't know what you're doing, you slow down. It is a human reaction to a lack of information and confidence. And that's what you're seeing here, man. The speed of this defense, the takeaways, the hits are picking up because they know what they're doing. They believe they know what they're doing, and now they're doing it fast.
I've never understood why when people are lost, they turn the radio down. I do the same thing.
We all do it.
I'm trying to focus.
We all do.
I need all my senses. Where in 285 am I? Carl, one of the things I saw in Oregon State on Saturday night with their running back, you could hit him maybe a yard or two behind the line, or in front of the line of scrimmage, and you would think, okay, he gained a yard or two. But he would fall forward like 3 yards. And I feel like the Colorado running game, wherever you hit them, that's where the play ends. Man, what type of intangible or tangible thing is that, where you can, is it the line blocking? Is it the strength of the running back where the point of contact is not where the play ends and the ball is ultimately spotted?
It's strength, is having the ability and to keep your feet moving after contact, moving forward. And most importantly, it's desire to not be brought down. So the great running backs, they keep those puppies moving, man, through contact. And you have to really make sure that you get them on the ground or they make explosive plays.
Here's something we knew coming into this game, based on film and having watched them play, because we're late in the season, deep in conference scheduling. We knew Oregon State on both sides of the ball was a physical team. They bring it to you. They don't sit back and wait on you to make a tackle. They initiate contact. And this becomes physics. If I am the same weight as you and I'm moving faster towards you, you're going to fall back, not me. It's just that simple. You learn in high school physics, even though I wasn't paying that much attention. I did learn that. But one of the things I want to say about this defense, that although we were not able to bring that back down at the first contact, a lot of that contact happened in the backfield. A lot of that contact happened at the line of scrimmage. So here's what you know about that call, Reed. That means the damn defense was in the right position. Mm-hmm. It's when you don't touch a player that something was wrong. So what I saw was still an uptick, an arrow pointing up, because for the first time, in this season, we consistently played defense on their side of the line of scrimmage. We had tackles for loss. We had sacks. We had sacks that got away from us, but we were at least back there. So that was a positive thing. But they have a dynamic back. We knew they were going to believe in that running game, and we knew he was going to be the one looking and lowering that shoulder to drive forward, which is something we got to get our backs to do. But in fairness to those backs, you really can't expect that out of a running back when you don't have designed, deliberate, consistent runs to the same player.
I've seen Savion be that guy at Jackson State. I know this is a different conference, the different jump up in classification, and Neely, I was glad to see him get a couple of carries there. I thought they were going to try to go with him for a while. Do you think the guy that can do the things you need to do from that running back position, do you think he's on the roster now, or is that something that there's got to be another addition there as well?
So much like we have dealt with in our adult lives, someone is always looking to replace us. So it doesn't matter who's on the roster right now. Coach Prime and his recruiting staff are going to go out there and try to find the best running back that they could get here in Colorado and make that room compete. Having said that, I do think with the Alton McCaskill going redshirt, who's not going to participate in games the rest of this season, that now you get a chance to bring in smoke off of special teams and the things he was able to do from Kentucky and the SEC. And you also can get more reps for Savion Wilkerson and the things he was doing at the SWAC. Savion this past game with Oregon State led the team in rushing. Right there in the third quarter, had a big run of 8 yards and another one of 7 yards. I think what happens with running back, Carl Reed, please once again correct me if I'm wrong, they have to know they're getting the ball versus RPO stuff all the time, and they have to be in the game consistently to get that rhythm and get that motor going. When you have a guy do 2 plays and he doesn't touch the ball again for a couple quarters, you have a regression in his rhythm and ability. I think we got to get a back, stick with that back, let him do his thing. Now that McCaskill is going to redshirt, I think you should see some of the bigger backs in Wilkerson, some Hankerson, and some Smoke doing their thing these next 3 games.
Absolutely, Neely. A running back needs to develop a certain type of rhythm, a certain type of callus, a certain type of know-how on the plays that he's going to be getting the football. And RPOs are good at times, But there are also times that guy needs to know you're giving him the ball right now and you're giving him an opportunity to get downhill and get positive yardage.
All right. How important is it, guys? There's still a chance for the math says Colorado can still make a bowl game. There's 3 games left. All you need is 2 more wins. Shedeur Sanders he's getting hit. He had to go to the locker room briefly. He was able to come back out, and he talked about it in the post game. Like, look, I'm not going to leave the other 80 guys hanging. Like, he said it'd have to be like a life or death situation for me not to come back. Is there any concern that you still need this guy next year? Like, he is coming back. You don't need him to get beat to death here at the end of this season.
No, you can rest in the off season. You have a long off season between this season and the next. They need to do everything they can do to try to get 2 of these last 3 wins and get a program an opportunity to go to a bowl game. And Shedeur is the ultimate competitor. The last thing that he's going to want to do is sit out and not play and finish the season with his teammates.
Well, I try to speak up for the people on Twitter and all their great ideas. I saw that floating out there.
Most of the worst ideas in the world take place on Twitter now. Charlie, you want to find you some better company in certain situations, man, and to be listening to those guys on Twitter.
I want them to know that someone hears them. I too think it's a cesspool as well, but it is what it is. One of the other things that I was looking at in that Oregon State game, how much time, Carl, do you think when you get a new offensive guy in there calling plays, at the beginning of the year you say, hey, you'll see some progression from week 1 to week 2. Do you think we'll see some progression with a new signal caller from this week to next week?
I think so. You improve every week. Football is a game of improving. You'll go back and look at the film. You look at the communication. You'll see what went right, what went wrong, and then you'll make decisions from there.
I agree, gentlemen. I think that whereas you're going to continue to play games to win, if this math continues to get away from you, it's also a great time for observation, a great time for assessment of current talent that you have. And how you assess that is much like the NFL preseason. It means giving people opportunities. And I think one of the true opportunities here is to see who can play running back and who could be a part of this team next year. McCaskill will be back with the red shirt. So what I look for, Tolly, to answer your question about things improving, I look for the run game to improve because I look for these next 3 games for runs to get more opportunities, whether it's for evaluation, clock management, or actually making an effort to win these ball games. We have to, at some point, decide, can we run the ball, and is there somebody on this roster who can do it?
Looking at that game on Saturday night, again, as a fan, just sitting at home, eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at midnight, the thing that made me just go, is these 3rd and 10s and these 3rd and 11s, and the quarterback just sneaks out of there on a draw. What are realistic expectations on average, Carl, when you got your defense out there? It's 3rd and long. What percentage are you giving them? Like, guys, 3rd and 2 is one thing, but if it's 3rd and 12, we need to get them off the field.
Want to get them off the field at least 80% of the time in those situations. That's what the chart would tell you. And you have to be really locked in those 3rd and long situations and execute.
Amen and amen again. I think what got away from us, particularly with that 5 wide and the quarterback going right up the middle, is Carl Reed has articulated on the big boys time and time again, something's going to beat you. You got to give up something to protect something. And I think we fell asleep at spying on the quarterback and decided to help on some deeper routes because, as you said, it's 3rd and 12. So let me go bracket somebody, around the line marker, the yard marker to prevent this first down. And then they picked the poison that was up the middle. Had I had my choice in it, a quarterback who really hadn't shown that he could beat me deep consistently throughout the game, I'm trusting my guys out there on one-on-one coverage, and I'm leaving me a linebacker or bring a safety down to make sure that the quarterback or even a halfback doesn't run 20 yards up the middle of the field.
Yeah, it was something to see. It took the air out of my sails at home, so I could imagine what it was like there at the game. Neely, set the table for us, man. We got 3 to go. What's up next?
Well, you got Arizona coming to Folsom Field, and it's not a late night game. It's going to be an afternoon game, so that should help the energy of the team without being sitting around and bored all day long waiting on an 8 p.m. kickoff. So I'm hopeful and optimistic that the kickoff time is to our advantage. Home field is to our advantage, but the matchup is also to our advantage. When you went back to August and you were coming out of fall camp, and I know guys like Coach Reed do not look ahead, but even as a fan, when you're looking at that schedule, you're looking at games like, okay, I think we got what it takes to get that one. When you get through this season and going, I like the way we were presented with Stanford, just like we were at Colorado State. I look the same way with Arizona. What they bring to the table suits us well. We do great at what they're poor at, and the things that we're good at, they do poorly. So I think that this is a game that's not only mathematically becoming a must-win for bowl eligibility and preserving, a 500 season or win season. It is the game that you have to have if you're going to get one of those last 2 on the road up in Pullman, Washington, nighttime on a Friday night, or at Utah. These are 2 tough opponents closing out the schedule on the road. You got this one at home. This one is the one you got to get and you got to focus on.
Neely, you're absolutely right. If you want a shot at bowl eligibility, winning any of those last 2 ones against Washington State and Utah on the road, you got to take care of business against Arizona. You need the confidence and the momentum going into that road swing.
Carl, how do you see the matchup when you look at the personnel, the schematics, things? Neely kind of talked about what they do poorly and what they do good. When you look at Arizona and you look at Colorado, what do you see there?
I think that they match up very well. I do think it's a team that Colorado should be able to run the football some on. I don't think that they're overly imposing up front in the defensive front 7. So you should be able to give some protection and get your offense going. And they don't have any real guys that scare you offensively enough to feel like your defense can't play a great football game. So it's a game that's right for you to win, but you can't turn the ball over. You have to have incredible clock management, and you have to go out there and make the plays that are there to be made.
Carl, I got to tell you, one of my things I do when I watch an upcoming opponent is I look at it as if I'm Coach Prime and I'm giving out scholarships. How many guys on that team could play for me here at Colorado, and which one of those would have a scholarship? When you looked at a UCLA or Oregon, you saw quite a few guys that you would offer a scholarship to. When you get to Arizona State, you may see 1 or 2 guys on the entire team, that you felt could play for you. It's a similar thing going into this matchup. I like what we have, juxtaposed to what they have. Now we've just got to execute it, man. I talk all the time about these 4 or 5 losses that could have gone the other way. Well, I can't sit here and not look at the other side of the coin. We've had 4 wins that could have easily gone the other way too. Which team is going to show up at home, afternoon Folsom Field, and mathematically get us back to 500 ball and another chance at winning one of the last 2 to get bowl eligible? And that starts with Arizona coming in your house.
Absolutely. I agree with you totally.
Yeah, I'll translate here. It's a basketball school. You need to get the win. That's wonderful. If it's basketball, all right, I don't know about that, Colorado. Football, you need to get the win.
Didn't we have a fellow talking head get in trouble about calling a school a basketball school, and the head coach said, take that?
Yeah. He said it a little stronger than that as well. Really, I would love for a Power 5 school to say Tolly Carr from the Big Boys can kiss his ass. That would do wonders for our ratings. So feel free. Any coach that wants to name drop us during his post-game interview, knock yourself out. It is highly encouraged. All right, we'll see. We will see. Coach Carl Reed, thank you so much. Uncle Neely, thank you so much. And guys, for not commenting that I wear the same suit every week, thank you so much as well. I'm just kind of like Mr. Rogers. It's hanging right over there, and I just put it on and we do it. But the information and the knowledge is so rich. That's what we're all here for. It is the Big Boys on the Pregame Show Network. We'll be talking about this weekend's game coming up as soon as it's over. We'll get that content to you. We're looking forward to it. You guys enjoy your week, and we'll talk to you soon.